All right guys, here we have our light for our truck. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open this light up and we're going to install halos in here around our projector light. And the way you can do that is you can do it one of two ways. Either you can put this in an oven at 250 degrees for 15 minutes and get it so that the adhesive gets loose, and then you basically just pry it apart and pull this lens off of this backing. Or you can take a Dremel with a cutting wheel on it and you can actually cut all the way around the lens on this light, and then when you put it back together, you'll take and put some silicone sealer all the way around it to seal it up to keep the moisture and stuff out of it. Today I want to show you how to install the Oracle OE style halo headlights onto this 2014 GMC Sierra Denali and our color changing controller. All right guys, as you can see here, we've got everything laid out and ready to go to put onto our truck. So the first step of this process is to get these old ones out of the truck. Okay, the first step obviously is to take off our cover here, and you can see you just pop the body plugs out of it. And we'll just lay this off to the side because when we're all done we'll have to put this back. One other important thing is that there's a bolt that holds the headlights in right down behind this piece right here on this valance and behind there. So this all has to come off and get out of the way. Next thing we want to do is get this valance off so we get this headlight out of here. But before we can get to this valance, we're going to have to get in the fender well here, take off our fender flare and the inner fender well. So let's get that out of there so we can get to the headlight and the valance. In order to get this fender flare off, what we got to do is there's bolts that go around here. This one's 8mm. The rest of these are Torx. And then there's one 13mm that's up underneath the bottom that we got to take loose. So we'll get those out so we can get this off, get to this inner fender. Fender flare's out of the way. So now there's a whole bunch of little Torx headed screws all throughout this inner fender. You just got to start pulling them out to get those out of there. And once you get all those screws out, then you can just pull this inner fender right out over the tire, set it off to the side, and that'll let us get to a bolt that's holding this valance on right in here. Got all of our screws out of here, so now we can get this inner fender out of the way. Now you don't have to take it out of here, you can leave it laying up in there, but it's just as easy to pull it out of the way and set it off to the side, you know, and then you don't have to deal with it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do here is there's a little bolt right up here. It's a little 8mm bolt. We're going to take that off, and what that'll do is that will allow us to pull our valance loose on the front here. We've got that bolt out of there, so now we're going to pull this valance loose, and it's held in with clips, so it's going to be kind of tight, a little bit difficult to pull out of here, but it will come out. You just kind of got to be a little bit mean with it, and that's going to allow us to get into our two bottom bolts in our headlight. Now that we've got that out of the way, we can take these bottom bolts out. All right, we got the two bottom ones out. Then we'll go ahead and pull these two top ones. And we'll get a hold of our headlight. And we're going to fish it out of here. And then once you get it loose and out of there, you just unclip it right here, and ta-da, it's out. All right guys, before we put our new light in with our halos, what we want to do is, you see this bundle of wire here that's on the back of the light. These are the wires that work the halos. We want to unwrap this tape off of them, because when we put this in to the area where it goes on the front of the truck, we don't want this stuck down in the bottom where we can't get to it to wire our halos up. So we're going to take all this and we're just going to hold it up out of the way, and we'll come over here and plug this in. Okay, what we're going to do with the wires on this side is we're just going to take them, and there's a little slot in here. We're just going to put them through there and bring them up here for right now, and then plug this into our new light. And then we're going to take our new light and we'll get it down in here where it goes. Now this part can be a little tricky, guys, because you got to be able to get this light behind the grill and behind the valance and under the fender all at the same time. Okay, once we got that drop back in, we can start putting our bolts back in it. Now, at this point, what would be a good thing to do is to go over and turn the lights on, make sure that they're working and everything before we get too far along, so we're going to do that. We've got the bolts back in our light. We know that our light's working like it's supposed to, so we can go ahead and put this valance back on. That's back in place, so we just got to put that bolt back in there, put our inner fender back in, fender flare back on. All right, we got our valance all reattached. Now we're going to put our inner fender back in here. In there. All right, guys, we've got our inner fender back in, so we're going to put our fender flare back on, which is a pretty simple process. You just line up your pins and give her a little pop. Okay, once that's back in place, then we'll go ahead and put the bolts back in it. Okay, we've got our headlight reinstalled into the truck, so the next thing to do is put our grill back in. We'll just go ahead and push it back up here in place where it goes and put our bolts back in it. Now we're going to put our cover back on. We've got our cover back on and our body plugs put back in to hold this on. So the next thing we're going to do is install the fog lights. So let's get those old ones out of there and get started. There you have it. This completes our install of our Oracle OE style halo headlights. So let's just go ahead and take a look and see what these things can do.